Hello, everyone. Having some people trickle in from the last session. Thanks for hanging on with us through lunch times, dinner times, whatever time it is for you. I'm pleased to introduce ShipBob's own senior strat ops manager, Rachel. Rachel has an extensive background in developing and launching strategic solutions for our customers here at ShipBob, and today she's going to be going over ShipBob's global freight program, FreightBob. So if you have any specific questions, post those in the chat. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Fran, for that amazing introduction, and thank you all so much for joining. Fran mentioned today I will be talking about ShipBob's end-to-end managed freight and inventory distribution program, which enables merchants to pick from a variety of preferred freight providers, optimize freight costs, and distribute inventory more strategically across ShipBob's fulfillment centers with FreightBob and inventory placement. And with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, hope you guys can see that. So leveraging reliable global freight to get inventory where it needs to be and at the right time. Very relevant, I think, to everyone on this call today. So how do we go about using ShipBob's network of global freight providers to get your inventory into our FCs with ease? So ShipBob has a plethora of freight providers that we offer to our merchants to get really reliable service and phenomenal rates, right? We optimize freight cost and distribute inventory much more strategically across ShipBob's FCs to get products to customers faster, increasing revenue and forecasting with greater precision. So ShipBob works with a variety, as mentioned, of global freight providers, some of those being EQ Worldwide, our latest being Maersk, which you might have heard of before. Maersk is definitely an industry leader in this space, and they work with all merchants of all sizes, really as this one-size-fits-all for all global freight needs, which is perfect for our plethora of different types of customers that ShipBob actually works with, from grassroots entrepreneurs all the way up to enterprise level merchants. They get access to Maersk Global Freight Network as part of our FreightBob solution offerings. FreightBob powered by Maersk is our tier 1 global freight solution, and that just means that we have the closest partnership with them than we do with the majority of the other services that we work with. With 65,000 port pairings in more than 100 countries, they're the industry leader, certainly, and they are not just ocean freight, but they also do air freight and domestic freight in certain locations. They do really phenomenal work, and we partner incredibly closely to really offer this shared factory floor to customer door solution. So that's a really handheld, very customizable support to even be able to offer to first-time importers who may have a lot of questions. Not to worry here, because Maersk does a great job of being able to support all different types of brands. So exclusive consolidation is also available for ShipBob merchants of every size, again, from startup to enterprise level brands. And with that, what sort of happens when we get your inventory into the ShipBob network, right? What we're really talking about here is being able to get your inventory to the right location. When you first start off at ShipBob, what's really great is you have the ability to request a certain region or location for fulfillment. So obviously you're going to know probably demographics for your brand. You're going to know maybe where your customers are located, especially if you might be coming from a prior 3PL. You might already have a great feel, right? So requesting locations for region-specific demographic is a great feature that is available at ShipBob. But beyond that, once you start shipping through ShipBob beyond 50 orders, we actually have an algorithm that recognizes patterns and data within your historical orders to your customers. So it knows things like how much you bring into the network. It knows what goes out to your customers. It knows zip code level data, basket analysis, so on and so forth. And with that, we're actually able to make recommendations for the placement of your goods to also include limited forecasting capabilities. And really getting your inventory to the right location is incredibly pertinent to the satisfaction of your customers, and it plays into things like customer retention, lowest average cost per order, time in transit to your customers, so on and so forth. So it's all about delighting your D2C and B2B customers by getting orders to them faster and cheaper, unlocking that affordable and 2-day delivery coverage without having to subsidize a portion of your revenue to into some sort of like express program. It reduces operational complexity, especially for brands of lower headcount. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs that maybe have a team that's a little bit limited headcount that wear 100 hats each. So especially for those who might not, have a forecasting team, this is a really great feature as well. And it's avoiding stockouts with collaborative inventory rebalancing across our US network. And what this looks like in practice and how these two solutions are kind of like peanut butter and jelly here. You might have a manufacturer overseas that you need to get inventory to into the United States or wherever it's going. For that, we would utilize the FreightBob solution to get it there with any of our providers, with any of our partners. Once it arrives to the United States, once it's delivered, with inventory placement, you get to deliver to one location. That one location closest in proximity to your manufacturer perhaps could save a lot of cost on the inbound side, right? So we're factoring ideas and principles like that into how we're able to offer you a little bit more strategic cost savings play so that you're not having to deliver to multiple different locations within the United States. You can send everything to one location. And through inventory distribution and inventory placement, we're able to recommend a distribution plan on how that inventory is allocated across the network of locations that you have requested access to. So we're not just putting your inventory anywhere and everywhere. We are making it a collaborative conversation. Hey, we think that this would be better off in these 3 sites or in these 4 locations. And from that conversation forward, everything is totally automated from delivery to distribution across the US fulfillment centers. Destination locations within the US are doing the stowing and the fulfillment to your customers. So the way that we're sort of looking at this visual, these larger sort of dots are our hub locations across the United States. So in the 5 different regions throughout the US, we have 5 delivery hubs. Hopefully for manufacturing proximity purposes, one or many of these hubs would be advantageous to utilize for inbound. And the smaller little dots are our fulfillment centers within those specific regions. And as you can see, these dedicated line hauls move back and forth across the US market to really get your inventory where it needs to be very quickly. Understanding that there's a little bit of a buffer in that first site of stow to be able to really account for time in transit to other location or locations within the US. All right, and this is just a visual of what you actually see when you start with ShipBob. So your warehouse receiving order page is just your inbound order that's coming into the ShipBob network. You actually get tracking along the way so you know at any given time where your inventory is. You get to choose the location of delivery with inventory placement, and then you get to see based on how many units you're sending in, I'll show this in a moment, where that inventory is destined to. And this is all based on historical sales trends, current on-hand levels across the network, future demand forecasting, head and tail SKUs. That just means what is getting distributed versus what is not getting distributed because you have the ability to choose since this is such a customized feature. Rebalance or replenish points and hero site logic. A hero site is what we refer to as one place in the network of fulfillment centers that has all of your inventory at any given time. That's your hero site. So now if you were to wonder, well, where is my inventory actually going based on ShipBob's recommendations? If you take a look at one individual SKU, it'll show you out of the total amount of units, how much is going to each individual location. So you get that immediate transparency. This populates right as soon as you create an order into the ShipBob network. And this also has a tracking link so you know where it's going at any given point in time along the way. You know where your inventory is. All right, now let's talk about some real use cases here and how easy it is to use FreightBob for your inbound movements. This is from Jesse Richardson, who is the founder of the School of Thought. They're a merchant that we work with here at ShipBob. He says, I can't believe how much easier, cheaper, and quicker it was using FreightBob to ship our ShipBob warehouse via Maersk. Everything is taken care of end to end. This is how global shipping and logistics should be. ShipBob and Maersk are a match made in heaven. Instead of having to deal with the uncertainty of multiple carriers, everything is simply taken care of. The service is truly world-class, and the economics of scale mean that our shipments arrive significantly quicker and cost much less than it has in the past. What a great testimony. And now a brand that we work with called Semaine Health, how they have migrated over to ShipBob from their prior 3PL using a distributed inventory model on the inventory placement program. They launched with inventory placement, or as we refer to it at ShipBob very lovingly, IPP, the inventory placement program. They started in 4 fulfillment centers in the United States. They've seen the real results of their fulfillment costs dropping roughly $2.16 per order on average because they're physically closer to their customers now utilizing IPP. With ShipBob, they have now had 1.6 days cut from their average time in transit to their customers, so down from 5.2 to 3.6, with 4 times the order volume, an increase over 6 months. That's amazing, and that's probably due to the fact that they switched over to ShipBob as a whole. The comparison from their prior 3PL to working with ShipBob is that they're reporting a 99.95 accuracy rate, which is a 10 times reduction in the error rate over their prior 3PL. That's amazing. Those are some really real results. All right. Well, that's all for today, folks. If you're interested in either of these solutions, I'm going to go ahead and drop my email and our FreightBob landing page here. But otherwise, let's bring Fran back on to shed some light on any questions that might be in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat. We do have some time. First one is from Jenna. Do you only offer transport to and from ShipBob warehouses? Great question.
That is a really good question. And actually with FreightBob, so long as you're utilizing ShipBob for your fulfillment, you can use FreightBob to get your inventory anywhere. So whether it's in the US, whether it's external to the US, FreightBob services everything so long as you're utilizing us as your fulfillment provider.
Okay, let's see what next questions we got. Please post them in here. But next one is, does FreightBob do just ocean or do they do air freight as well?
Yeah, really great question. So FreightBob services ocean, they service air, and they also service domestic in multiple different geographies across the globe. So they are able to support basically everything within your global freight needs. We also do custom services. If you're interested, I know the prior session was DDP, DDU. We work with that side of the business as well, and we're able to do product categorization, so on and so forth. So it's really a one-stop shop at ShipBob for all of your global needs.
Great. Next question. What lanes are most popular for FreightBob?
What lanes are most popular for FreightBob? We have so many different brands that we work with here at ShipBob. I would say most regular lanes are really, really popular here with FreightBob. Specifically, China to the US is probably our most used lane, but we also have that into the UK, EU. We also ship into Australia pretty often and Canada, so on and so forth. So we're able to support all lanes. I would say Asia to the US is probably the most repetitive.
Okay. And then I think last question we have, unless anyone else has any, post them in the session chat. Is FreightBob faster than going with a normal freight partner or provider?
So what we've seen historically, when merchants tend to use multiple different providers for multiple different things, right? They might try and pick and choose different companies to work with in different capacities, is when you work with a solution that's sort of that one-stop shop, everything from the communications to actually getting your freight booked is much, much faster. Now, physically, let's say over the ocean, over the air, domestic freight, we actually do have a fast boat solution that a few of our different providers actually offer. So in terms of speed, it definitely can be a lot faster to get your inventory into the network utilizing one of our providers for sure.
Okay, great. And I don't think we have any more questions. So if you guys have specific questions on your brand based on what your guys' needs are, or you just want to meet with us about FreightBob, IPP in general, Rachel did post a link to our FreightBob page. Just fill out the form and the team will reach out. So thank you guys for your time. We have a couple minutes for everyone to take a break till the next session, and we'll see you there. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.